T-minus 15 seconds and counting. 10. We have a go for main engine start. 7, 6, 5. We have main engine start. We have a cutoff.
NTD, we have an RSO abort.
We have an abort by the onboard computers of the Orbiter Discovery.
EPD verified the big monitor SRM ignition is safe. EPD verified it. Okay. Brake. DLS shows engine 1 not shut down. Okay, PLT. CSME, verify engine 1. Shut down engine 1? We do not show engine start on 1. OTC, CCME, I can verify post shutdown and engine 1. We said start prep engine 1. Okay, are all engines shut down? Can you verify that?
We can now verify all 3 engines have been shut down.
All engines shut down. We have red lights on engines 2 and 3 in the cockpit, not on 1. All right, CSME, verify engine 1 safe for APUs down. Yes, I can verify that. OTC, TPE, go for APU shutdown. Okay, PLT, perform the APU shutdown for the checklist.
Orbiter test conductor informing pilot coach to shut off the auxiliary power units, these which provide the hydraulic power to the orbiter.
Okay, you want the GBC-5 to halt? Say again, OTC? Yeah, GBC-5 to halt. Yep, it's in 102. Okay,
The launch team going through the process of safing vehicle systems and the launch pad to put everything back in a safe configuration. We have heard no word at this point as to what the reason for the main engine cutoff, what that reason was.
What about the GPCs? Okay, we can call GPCs up. Copy. Frank, this is PE. Yes, sir. I think we're okay now. Okay. Everything looks good.
Shuttle project engineer Gene Thomas reporting to the NASA test director that everything looks in good shape now, that the vehicle has been put back into a safe configuration.
DLS station still in work, is proceeding normally. Okay, PLT, can you verify APU shutdown complete?
Right, DLS safety complete.
Okay, copy that.
DLS safety complete.
Okay, copy.
Safing by the ground launch sequencer has been completed as we continue to safe vehicle and orbiter systems.
Okay, I'll get the speed lines back on. Yeah, CDPS, OTC. Go ahead. Okay, GLS safing is complete. I'd like to transition back to G9 at this time. All right, copy. DPS. CNT, go. Okay, panel C2, right CRT select switch 3. Roger. CRTs 1, 2, and 3 major functions, GNC. That's done. And panel C3, DFC CRT select switch 3 plus 1. That's verified. And display switch on. That's verified. And the ring keyboard, a message reset.
Launch team here in the flying room continuing to reconfigure systems on board the shuttle. Still no word exactly on what the problem was that caused an abort at the T-minus 4 second mark. That is the time that is showing on the clock at this point. We did not apparently get an indication for start of one of the engines, which was the reason for stopping the countdown prematurely, just 4 seconds away from ignition.
Like a money gone out now on TC.
At this time, we will stand by to try to check on what the reason for the cutoff was, and we'll update you as soon as we have further information. The launch team at this time is extremely busy working on pad systems, getting everything in a safe configuration.
Now we see a little bit of steam coming down from the bottom there. That, we repeat, is not a, that's not a fire. That's just normal steam vent coming out from the fuel on board. Roy Neal, who's covered the space program a good deal longer than I have, corrected me that there was once on a Gemini flight an incident where it went to closer to 1 second than this did. But this certainly in the shuttle program was the closest we've ever come to a launch that's correct. Not happen. And I think it also bears repeating that the systems did work very well. They shut down. And tell me what would have happened. And we repeat to the viewers that what we're saying here is completely hypothetical. But what would have happened if that engine had failed another 10 seconds later, say 5 seconds after they were off the ground?
Well, if it fails right at liftoff or within the first few minutes of flight, we would be in a return to launch site mode, which means that the whole vehicle would turn around downrange and fly back toward Kennedy and land on the runway.
Okay, well, they would have tried to land on the runway. We just heard that the people in launch control here, after examining that fire situation at the bottom of the Discovery, have determined that the fire is out, that it's clear, and it is safe to take the crew out. I think that's our first clue as to why the crew didn't come out right away, is that I think that there was concern about fire danger. The NASA launch director just gave the word that it appeared to him that the fire was out and that he gave a go for the crew to egress, that is, to come out of the launch vehicle. I think pretty soon we'll be seeing the 6 astronauts coming out of the Discovery.
Bob, did they also tell you what the fire was precisely?
No, I haven't heard exactly what the fire was. There are several detectors. Is that correct, Colonel? They're all over the place.
There are sensors and detectors for gases and for fire, and apparently they had some on the bottom level there who were that were giving positive indications.
Now to send the
doesn't necessarily mean there was a fire, but it could mean overheating, or if the engine burned through those, it could have shorted them.
Bob, as you asked Colonel Shriver there what would have happened.
Of the liquid oxygen tank is underway, and we will drain the hydrogen tank as soon as the flight crew has left the vehicle. There really is no more status to report at this time, so this is going to wrap up commentary from the firing room. And until we have more status, we won't be coming up anymore this morning with commentary. We have scrubbed the launch of Mission 41D for today. Wrapping up, we did get a premature cutoff of the shuttle main engines approximately 4 seconds prior to the scheduled liftoff, and for that reason we will not attempt another launch today. Engineers will be going over data, trying to assess what it was that caused the premature shutdown. That work certainly cannot start until after we get the liquid out of the external tank and send people back in to start inspections of the engines and other systems on the shuttle. Again, this will wrap up commentary from the firing room for this morning. This is Shuttle Control.
And as we pointed out, even after the problem is identified and corrected, it'll probably be a minimum of 48 hours or 2 full days before this mission could be rescheduled. There's not much more to say other than to recap that this Discovery, its maiden voyage, has been aborted. The aborted flight took place about 35 minutes ago, just 6 seconds before liftoff, when the #1 main engine failed to develop the necessary 90% of thrust.
To close down our commentary from here, there are a number of things that have to happen before we'll have anything further to report. And in Mission Control, they took it, rolled over one time, and we asked, can any of you people break loose to come over and talk with us and tell us what your feelings really are? And they said, not till after the crew come out of the spacecraft.
Another point, Roy, a little bit earlier when you and I were talking, I asked you at what cost had the launch been delayed, and you said, well, there was considerable cost of postponing it 24 hours. Now there's going to be even more. What do these delays cost? Can you even put a dollar figure on it on a daily basis?
Well, it's very hard to do, Bryant, because when you look at a postponement of this kind, first of all, we don't even know how long the postponement. We don't know how much it will take to make a fix to get things working again. But normally you can figure that you're looking at something in the range of about $1 million a day. But that's chewed up in salaries for people who are on the payroll anyway. It's kind of like saying, if the Today Show were to postpone for 24 hours, how much would it cost?
Yeah, we'd still wind up paying some people, and others we'd wind up saving on.
Yeah, I guess so. One thing more, though, we were told a few minutes ago by firing control, and this is an important point, that they can't go into troubleshoot until they get all of the liquid out of the external tank, meaning all the liquid oxygen and all the liquid hydrogen. That drainage will take some time, so I suspect it's going to be quite a few hours before we find out what really happened this morning, because crews can't go in to inspect the damage and see what caused the problem.
Okay. Roy, while you've been listening, I know Bob and Colonel Shriver have been listening on to NASA Control. What's the latest, gentlemen?
The latest is that the launch control just gave the astronauts the order that they will have a normal egress. That is, they're not going to rush out. They're not going to come down the slide emergency wires. So apparently they feel that whatever fire or explosive danger there was before certainly no longer exists. I think, again, for people who are just joining us, it's not a bad idea to keep recapping what happened. There was no danger to the astronauts, but the countdown for the maiden voyage of the Discovery did get to T-minus 4 seconds this morning. And at that point, the onboard computer aborted, said, no way, you can't take off. And the reason for that was because one of the engines had failed. After that happened, we saw some flames shooting up around the area. There were indications from the shuttle's fire safety devices that there was either a fire or an escape of noxious fumes. They turned automatic fire hoses on that were at the bottom of the engines and kept those on for a long time until the people in launch control were convinced that there was no danger. Since that time, the crew has been shutting down all the systems on board, and what will happen next is that we will see the 6-person crew, Commander Hank Hartsfield and his 5 fellow crew members, including Judy Resnik, who was to have been America's second woman to go into space. They'll be coming out in a bit, and we'll get a look at what their expressions on their face when they do. I suspect it'll be about 5 or 10 more minutes at least until they come out. Then they'll go back. They'll be driven in their van. It's called the Astro van, and they're taken back to their crew quarters, I suspect, for a very thorough debriefing about what they saw and heard and felt during those final seconds when the mission was finally aborted. Brian?
Again, let's alert all our stations along the line that we are continuing past our normal cutoff time with the live pictures from
the situation wasn't a disaster, although it may have well come close to being one. It's interesting to speculate what this will do for the future of the space program. We don't know what this problem was. NASA has been way behind in the shuttle program from what its original plans had been all along, and I would think, Colonel Shriver, that it's safe to say this is the last thing that you think you needed right now. There had been some problems with rockets that take satellites into higher orbits already, and because of that, this mission was only 70% full of what the load that it was supposed to be taking, because one of the rockets for one of the satellites hadn't been tested properly. But what do you think this is going to do for the future of the program?
Well, obviously, we would rather this hadn't happened, but I think what will happen now is all the engineers and technicians will sit down with what data they have and try to decide exactly what happened, and if the engine did not ignite properly, as to why it didn't, and then they'll take whatever corrective action they need, and I think we'll be back looking at another launch date very quickly.
Now, one of the things, what do you think is going through Commander Hartsfield? He's been up before. What's he thinking about right now?
Well, I think what he is trying to think about right now is cooperate with the ground team and making sure the vehicle is safe. He's monitoring the status of this recycle. He and the other members of the crew have done their switches to make everything inside as safe as they can. And they'll just wait now and try to discuss. I imagine there'll be some talk inside about what the options will be, and probably wondering why the engine didn't fire just like everyone else's.
Now, one of the things that's interesting to me about this, Bryant and Colonel Shriver, is that we've talked a lot about the shuttle becoming an operational system. After the 5th flight, they said it was an operational system. Now, this was a new vehicle, but the systems supposedly have been tested very thoroughly. But I think that this shows that this thing isn't quite operational yet. I mean, airplanes don't work sometimes, but they don't fail with the kind of frequency that we see problems here. A computer problem yesterday, which was serious, but was certainly minor compared to what we saw today. Is it safe to say that we still have a long way to go, Colonel, before we see the shuttles being routine flights like airplanes taking off like has been predicted?
I think it's fair to say that a system as complicated as the shuttle is, and it is the most complicated space vehicle we've ever built, we'll have some growing pains. It'll take a while to...
Now, if we switch to the NASA pictures for a moment, can we do that in New York? Okay, we can't do that. We have some... what's happening right now?
Bob, let me, as we're having a bit of a problem, why it happened or when it might happen again. We're looking at the hatch there. It appears they are getting set.
That's right,
to
Brian.
Take the astronauts out.
That is what's called the white room. That's we can now watch the technicians and begin to open the door to allow the crew to come out. I think also from having watched this kind of scene before, I think it's safe to say that these people are working quite a bit faster than they usually do. I think everybody wants to get the crew out of there as quickly as they can. That chatter that you hear in the background is still the flight crew on board talking to ground controllers about the various systems, continuing to shut things down, continuing to monitor things and make sure that they're okay.
Closeout crew is back in the white room out at the launch pad, and they will, as soon as they have access, open the hatch so that the flight crew can get out of Discovery. Launch Director Bob Seek, in discussions with Gene Thomas, our shuttle projects engineer, has basically said that he wants him to continue with the safing sequences, and then as soon as he can, we'll expect to get some words on what the preliminary indications of the problem, what those were as far as what caused us to abort the launch of Mission 41D this morning. No word on that at this point. The safing is continuing. Preparations for getting the flight crew out of the vehicle underway at this time, with the closeout crew back in the white room.
Now that was just, Bryant, that was the voice of Mark Hess in Mission Control. He's the man who was counting down backwards and stopped counting very abruptly at T-4 a little while ago when the maiden voyage of the Discovery was aborted because apparently of a failure of at least one of the engines to fire properly.
But stop counting very calmly, we might add.
I must say, I'm impressed with those people and their ability to maintain their cool. I think that Colonel Shriver, who's with me here, is a test pilot, and those of us who've either read or seen the right stuff know that one of the things that these folks are trained is to remain calm in all situations. And I sure got excited when that thing stopped, but you didn't seem to get too excited. Why not?
I think it's a great testimony to the professional core of people we have, not only here at the Cape, but all over the NASA system. To you know, they train for these types of things. It's not a surprise to be able to react to emergency situations. We try to train as much as we can to take care of any contingencies.
Well, they took care of it well enough, certainly, to make sure that everybody was safe this morning. What we see now on the pictures, the closeout crew, those are NASA employees or NASA contractors, are putting in a series of... Oh, here comes... There's Judy Resnik just came out. She walked by very quickly. Certainly didn't pause to say hello to everybody. Let's see who else comes out. We'll be watching. The man in the NASA suit, he's an astronaut, is he not?
Yes, that's true. That's Mike Smith.
But he was not on board. He's part of the closeout crew.
He's part of the closeout crew that returned.
Let's see who else we have coming out. They're taking their helmets out first. I can't see who that is because of the helmet.
The shuttle control. We are beginning now the egress of the flight crew. Judy Resnik being the first member of the crew out of the vehicle.
Steve Hawley.
Steve Hawley on the left there.
Charlie Walker, mission specialist. Steve Hawley being the third member of the crew out of the vehicle. We have three more members. The other mission specialist who is up on the flight deck with commander and pilot getting out now, Mike Mullane.
Mike Mullane,
and of course, the last two members of the flight crew, commander and pilot, Mike Coates and Hank Hartsfield.
I think the thing to note is that they're not uptight. Everybody's doing what they're supposed to do, and the situation is very well controlled.
Now, we have one more to come. Is that correct? I think we've seen...
I think both Mike Coates and Hank need to come out.
So the pilot and the commander, since they sit up front, they'll be the last to come out.
That's
is that
true.
Correct?
The test conductor a little while ago requested they go ahead and send the astronaut van to the pad, pick up the flight crew. We would expect that they'll return to the operations and checkout building.
Bob, as we wait on the commander and pilot, maybe you can tell me, I'm sitting here with some wire copy, and spokesman Terry White at Mission Control is saying there was no start on engine number 1. Is there any way of telling whether that was one of the new engines or whether it was one that came from Columbia or Challenger?
Was engine number 1, I'm going to ask the Colonel's driver this question, was engine number 1 the new one or the one that came from Columbia or Challenger?
I don't recall at the moment which one was changed out after the FRF.
There we have Commander Henry Hartsfield.
Out of the vehicle.
He actually seems to have a smile on his face. He doesn't seem to be terribly upset.
Flight harness.
So we're still waiting on Mike Coates.
Stretching out. I guess he was a little bit tense there for a moment. He's stretching his muscles out. I suspect that it wasn't all as easy as it sounded.
Well, and also recall that they've been out there some 3 to 3.5 hours now, and they do lay on their back, so it's kind of refreshing to get up and stand up and walk around.
But it certainly isn't as refreshing as you'd like to have been when it's floating around in space right now.
That's true. By now they would have gone past the Holmes 1 burn and would be well on their way to orbiting.
Here comes the helmet of Mike Coates, the pilot. I suspect we'll be seeing him in just a moment now. And here he comes. The last crew member is now out of the Discovery.
The last member of the flight crew now leaving the orbiter, Mike Coates, pilot.
Okay, Bob, now that Mike Coates and the other 5 are out, I'm going to take it back from you gentlemen with a big thanks. We're going to try to do a recap here. The shuttle engines, the shuttle has 3 main engines, are designed to fire 8 seconds before liftoff, enabling the ship to build up thrust before it is thrown into space. In this case, one of the engines had a no start. That's the word from NASA Control. There was a no start on engine number 1. At this time, there is no way of telling whether engine number 1 is, in fact, the one new engine on Discovery, or whether it was
They've determined and corrected whatever the problem was today. It
but
could be much
realistically,
longer.
could it be weeks or months?
It could be a week, yes. Oh, sure, it could be a week, could be 2 weeks. If they have to tear down that shuttle and replace the engine, I'm sure we're looking at least a week and perhaps more.
Yeah, this seems to be a more serious problem.
Well, we don't know what the problem is. It could be simply a malfunction of some valve, a very simple thing. I would suspect we'll know before the end of the day.
Shuttle control.
Apparently they got pretty close to the engine fired up, about for 2 seconds?
Right, they were within 4 seconds of liftoff.
And of course now the solid stage boosters, those are the rockets on either side of the shuttle.
The long.
And those fired up, no stopping it.
No, then the abort is in the
fire detectors on board the shuttle detected a bit of a flame down below. So far it is tough to tell what that flame was, what caused it, but it was quickly doused, and the NASA officials again seemed in no hurry to get the crew of 6 out. The crew of 6 now out of the shuttle. They are safe, and the folks at NASA, well, it's left to them to determine what went wrong. One final check with Roy Neal down at the Johnson Space Center. Roy?
Yes, here's some late word from Mission Control. They pinned the problem down to a failure to start on engine number 1. They think that will be easily resolved. They also say it will take at least 2 to 3 days to turn around because, of course, they started things such as the auxiliary power units, and it does take at least that amount of time before they can fly again.
They say easily resolved, but still a very major setback to the shuttle program, Roy?
I'm sorry, what was your question?
I said they said easily resolved, but still a major setback to the shuttle program.
Well, I think that remains to be seen. If they launch in 2 or 3 days, it's not a major setback. It becomes then something that the systems worked and they managed to overcome difficulty, and no harm done. No harm, no foul.
Okay, well, it remains to be seen. The NASA folks right now are saying there'll at least be a postponement of 48 hours. We'll have to watch along with you to see if it goes any farther than that. But the crew of 6 is safe. Discovery will not fly today. Again, the problem in engine number 1. For those of you along the East Coast, we invite you to stay tuned to your local station for updates.
Here, right now, the ground personnel are in there trying to finish shutting down all the systems on Discovery. At T-minus 4 seconds, they were ready to go. All systems were working on board, and the orbiter obviously was entirely on its own power, so they've got to shut all those systems down. An enormous amount of work to do. This is a hugely complex machine. There are also 2 solid rocket motors out there, and a lot of fuel left in the external tank. That will also have to be...
It looks...
Can get
the controller of the engines reads a channel A failure, we then switched control of the valve to channel B. When we did the comparison at channel B, we passed that comparison, which says that channel B opened the valve and it was opening properly at that point in time. However, we have a ground rule that we've had since day one that we do not want to lift off or go into SRB ignition when we have lost one leg of our redundancy to control the valves on the engine. So the controller then recognized a failure mode which we call major component fail, which says even though the engine was coming up properly at that time, at least based on the channel B data, it issued a cutoff. And so cutoff was given. Engine 3 shut down, engine 2 shut down. Engine 1 had not gotten into the start sequence, and it did not initiate a start. That is the extent of our data at the present time. We are analyzing data, and as Tom indicated, in the next few hours we should have more detailed data as to the actual cause of the problem.
Okay, we're ready for questions. We'll take questions first here at the Kennedy Space Center, and then we'll move to the other centers as they appear. Harry Colcom from Aviation Week.
This is for Mr. Lindstrom, or for Tom. Was there any damage done, structural damage done to the orbiter, and were there any actual fires in the...
Let me speak to that. What we had after the shutdown was both visual and instrumentation indication that we did have a hydrogen fire in the aft end. We initiated what we call our heat shield water deluge. It extinguished the fire. We let it stay on for a few minutes. We then cut off the purge and it reinitiated. We did that sequence approximately 3 times, and finally the fire did cease, and we were able to stabilize the situation. We do not know, again, the source, particularly the hydrogen, and will not know until we finalize it. But it would be not unusual to expect this in a shutdown situation. That's why we had the safety precautions already, and the crew reacted quite well, and we feel that we stabilized the situation very quickly. As far as damage goes, we'll have to just go look and see at that point in time, but we would not anticipate major damage.
Carlos Byers from the Houston Chronicle.
Do you know whether the failure was in the valve or in the instrumentation? And secondly, was the crew in any was the crew at hazard in this? Did they have anything to say about it? Any comments?
On the first part, we do not know at this time where the failure actually is.
On the second part, the crew was aware of the situation going on, but really did not take a active role in it. It was handled basically via the ground.
Frank Ducenda from Today.
Yes, I guess this is for Mr. Lindstrom first. Do I understand you to be saying that after your channel B check, it indicated that the valve had opened properly and was running? And second of all, did the 10% check come into play in any way?
The first part, I didn't quite hear the second part. The first question and response is yes. Channel B opened the valve, and at the time we made the 10% check, we passed that check. I didn't understand fully your second part of your question.
In other words, you had mentioned a 6% and a 10% check.
Yes.
Did 10% come into play in any way? Did you get that far with it?
I'm sorry, I still didn't understand the second part.
Well, did I misunderstand you before to say there were 2 checks, a 6%?
There are 2 checks. We commanded the valve to open at engine start. Channel A received this command, and at the 6% check, we did a comparison of the actual position versus the commanded position, and then the controller then had a miscompare, which said there was something was wrong. So it gave a channel A failure. Then the controller switched control of the valve to channel B. Channel B then opened the valve, and at the 10% time, 10% open position check, it passed, which indicated channel B had opened the valve and was continuing to open it as programmed.
Second question also, and if one of those engines had failed on liftoff, could you have gotten this bird up high enough to do an RTLS at that point with 2 engines? Would that
of course, we can fly with just channel B, and if we lose both channels during flight, we go into hydraulic lockup, which the engine then locks up and operates at the thrust that it was last commanded to, and it probably would be the throttle during a throttle bucket. But the engine will operate during flight even with failure of both of these.
Jay Barbary, NBC.
Tom, a few days ago you exchanged out engine number 3 after your first FRF, and you decided, wasn't it engine 3 you exchanged, or was it 1?
It's engine 1.
Engine 1. Well, was it engine 1 that didn't fire this morning, or was it 3 that didn't fire?
Engine 3.
Engine 3, okay. After the exchange out, you decided not to have another FRF, as you did before on Challenger, when you had to do essentially the same thing of changing engines. Is the prudent thing to do now to go through an investigation of exactly what happened once that you know precisely, is to go to another FRF of Discovery before you commit to flight? Are you talking about a long delay, or are you talking about possibly 2 days or just a few days?
Well, I think the program's going to address that basic issue that you raised. But however, let me point out that during STS-6, we had a basic question about leak detection, and the changing out of the engine was when we found a leak on the engine. We have changed out engines since that time and previously without FRFing. The purpose of the flight readiness firing is to show the interaction between a new orbiter, basically structural and its piping system, and multiple engines, since that can't be tested any other place than once you have the engines installed. So personally, and I'm speaking just for myself, not as any policy issue, I think that we would probably retain the policy that we can change out engines without doing an FRF.
Well, whoops, you have to wait for
the question, again, is the schedule question. It will be I feel, in the several days category. Again, the question you have to get back to is understanding the problem and then determining how much you have to do as far as rechecks on the engine before you're going to be feel comfortable. Again, engine 2 did come up, was fired, so that we have a question of whether we have to do whether we should do engine torque checks and things such as that. That we would normally do after a firing. So we'll know more of those answers later today.
Back here.
John Bisney, RKO. Tom, did I understand you to say that this hydrogen fire was extinguished only after 3 attempts?
Yeah.
And if that's correct, why are you so confident that there was not major damage?
Well, if you look, the area underneath the engine obviously is designed to accept a lot of heat and from a fire. So I really don't think there would be that kind of damage. The extinguishing is not uncharacteristic because hydrogen can be ignited very, very easily. There doesn't take much of an energy source at all. So so long as there was adequate hydrogen coming out, we would have expected a fire, and that's what we were holding the water to, and to really try to gauge when the hydrogen had stopped flowing.
And one follow-up to that, do you think that there may have been any water damage because you turned on those sprayers?
That's, been the question when we put the system in originally, was what kind of damage would it do? And I think only when we can get out there and take a look at it can we really tell. And I would not like to speculate on any extent or anything like that.
Sue Butler Hannafin from Time.
Sue Butler, Time Magazine. 2 questions. One, can we know exactly what Hartsfield said when you informed him that the mission was scrubbed? And 2, didn't you have trouble with that main fuel valve before? What is the history of that? Could you refresh our memories?
Sue, I didn't catch that first question.
Yeah, one thing to be easier, mic handlers, is if you can get in front of the people so they can speak directly into the microphone rather than the side.
Question, what did Hartsfield say? What is the quote when he was told that the mission was scrubbed? What were his feelings? What can we say? The other question deals with the fuel valve did you not have trouble before during development with that valve? What is the history of it? I do not recall the details.
Let me try the first question, part of it. I do not remember any crew particular statement. The engine cutoff is a dramatic thing that everybody realizes, and it's not like calling a scrub. It's sort of everybody knows that's what happened. So I don't recall any dialogue at all at that time, other than the people who called it and went through the procedures to assure that the engines were cut off and then went into the recovery. Bob, you might want to address
the second part. We have not had any problems, to my recollection, with the opening of this valve during the start sequence. Several years ago, we did have a structural failure of the valve, but I know of no problems with such as we had this morning.
Doug Detter, right here.
Of minimum 48 hours when you have an APU start?
No, on an APU start, there is no 48-hour ground rule. It depends basically on how much fuel you have in order to support the mission. At this point, I don't think that's a constraining factor, so I really haven't even checked into it. I think the recheck out of the engines and the examination will be the long pull.
All right, then one for Mr. Lindstrom. What is the power source on that for that valve?
There's a solenoid which drives it, but the actuator driven is a hydraulic.
So we've been watching the news conference at Cape Canaveral. It was a valve, apparently an indication of a valve failure that caused the aborted mission.
When the first engine was supposed to fire, the onboard computer detected that a fuel valve was stuck, and that engine ignited only slightly. The next engine then went off as it was supposed to. But then the computer, reacting to the valve problem, canceled the launch less than 2 seconds later and shut off the engines. The third one was never ignited. For most of the day, technicians have been trying to assess the damage to the Discovery. Once it is known how long repairs will take, NASA officials will set a new launch date. That is likely to be several weeks from now. Robert Bazell, NBC News.
It's considered bailing out of the shuttle cockpit and into a special basket that slides away from the spacecraft in emergencies. But Crew Commander Henry Hartsfield said they decided to wait it out.
Hawley, his wife Sally Ride, and Judy Resnik returned to Houston this afternoon. The media were kept at a distance. The astronauts were disappointed, and so was NASA by today's abort. The Space Administration spends about $3.5 billion a year on its space shuttles, and 1984 was to have been the year of the payoff, with 10 flights scheduled. But the Space Administration is a long way from reaching its goal. Last year, an Air Force-built second-stage rocket failed while trying to lift a communication satellite into orbit. The Air Force has been trying ever since to fix that rocket, hopes to fly again this December. As a result, at least one military flight was canceled. Civilian rocket boosters ran into similar problems.
Command was sent. The valve opened, but the launch computer shut everything down. What would have been a spectacular, fiery liftoff turned into a puff of steam.
We can now verify all 3 engines have been shut down.
The engines were off, but a fire was still burning. A hydrogen gas leak ignited, but was quickly extinguished. Despite the urgency with which ground technicians worked to get the 6 crew members out, NASA insists they were never in danger.
I think that the actions taken were cruel.
The greatest injury may have been to NASA's reputation and future business prospects.
3, 2, 1.
The only other time NASA has failed to launch after an engine ignition was 18 years ago on Gemini 6. Back then, the U.S. was competing with the Russians to get to the moon. Today, NASA is competing for hundreds of millions of dollars in satellite delivery contracts with the European Ariane rocket program. Although not NASA's fault, 3 satellites delivered by NASA officials say mishaps will plague any ambition. Even Hawley left the Kennedy Space Center for Houston. The disappointed astronauts were replaced on the shuttle pad by engineers.